doing? And a very good evening. And thank you guys for joining this evening. I'm sure it's not always easy to join with a bit of work around. How are you guys? All good?
Yes, sir.
Perfect, 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 perfect. Okay. So, we will start in a couple of minutes, but before that, I will try to, set the context of this entire 1 hour of boot camp. So we'll try to do a lot of interesting things as a part of this boot camp, so that once you guys like try to do it by your own, you would be able to, get a you will have a fair understanding of what Gen AI is, what its applications. We'll try to also do some hands-on. We'll try to see like how you can use, these pre-trained models for your own for any own use case, right? So we'll try to build something um, on the ground, right? And we'll try to test that, and we'll try to see like um how quickly and how precisely it can give us some very interesting results, right? So that would be something that we'll try to discover and try to understand in this session. But just to understand and just to get a sense of you guys, how many of you guys are aware of Python, by the way? Or let me reverse it. How many of you guys are not aware of Python? Because we'll try to do something in Python. But don't worry. But don't worry. We'll not go into the too much of details. We'll try to also focus on the front end of the app, and we'll try to understand that how these models really work. Yeah. So it would be a lot of interesting session, and of course we will try to start uh, with something where we will try to understand that how the space is moving, how are the different what are the different models which have come in, what exactly do we know about generative AI, and how it differs from your traditional machine learning models, right? So there's a lot of buzz around it, and it's, I think, good to know about it. And really, like for a person like you and me, can we generally go about and build a generative AI model? Can we do all of that? So it's all of that we'll try to cover. Obviously, we'll not get into too much of details because that would not be feasible in this particular webinar. But at the same time, guys, if you have any questions at any point of time, just feel free, right? And just try to maybe unmute yourself and ask, or you can even put down in the chat. I'll try my best to answer each and every one of you, but in case if I don't, you can always write back to me, right? Any of the materials that we will be sharing in this particular session, we can always share it back to you, so that you guys can always refer it, right? So all of that can be done. Okay. So with that, I think we can get started. But let me try to share my screen, and just let me know, guys, if you can see it. Okay. Can you guys see it, everyone? Hope it's visible to all of you. Perfect. Okay. So let's start with a very basic question. What is generative AI? Okay. And this question is for you guys. So I would want to understand that what do you understand about generative AI? Is it just ChatGPT? Is it a prompt and an output, or what exactly it is? So so according to you, how will you define generative AI, right? So that's the first question that we would try to understand. So you can put down your comments in the chat. uh, I think always good to So Shubham, GenAI is an AI which is good for generating responses, text, images with the help of LLM, generation of text and image. Okay, okay. What else? So I think that's the output. That's the output uh, that generative AI does. So obviously, the output of a generative AI model would be an let's say exploring, or it can generate some original content. But what exactly it is? What do you think exactly it is? I'm still looking for few more answers. That creates new content like text by giving prompts. It makes our life easier, saves a lot of time. Generated content in natural language format using models. Generation of image. Okay, okay. So I think a lot of you guys um, are telling I mentioned it correctly that yes, it's used for generating a text. You're generating an image based on certain inputs that you give. But then I think it's also good. The entire reason we are doing this particular webinar is to update and also improve your understanding, right? So uh, yes, so whenever we are talking about generative AI, we are talking about a lot of use cases, and we all know it's the next buzzword across industries, right? And it can be used to generate images, videos, text, whatever, and for various purposes, right? But I will try to go into a bit of technical detail about it, so that you guys you get a glimpse of what it is, right? So a Gen AI, and sorry for this inconsistent drawing. In Gen AI, what we are trying to do is basically it's part of the overall machine learning models, right? That's for true. But yes, and it is also used for generating things. Okay, so Gen AI generally is a part of what we define as neural networks, right? So it tries to use neural networks in the backend, and there are other models like variation and autoencoder models. There are models which are related to GANs or generative adversarial networks. So there are different models, right? But precisely if I talk about, there are transformers, there are variation autoencoders, or there are neural networks which is using, right? So it typically tries to do two things. Okay, what are the two things? So first, we are generally trying to encode a collection of existing information. So obviously, that, let's say, if ChatGPT or Gemini or let's say Copilot is giving you an output, it is basically trained on certain input data, right? So what it does, so it basically it encodes. So it has already been, so models that we have been using, it encodes what? It encodes set of existing information, right? It encodes set of existing information, right? And does what? So this existing information, imagine that's like set. So what I mean by training, so basically something like on which the model is trained, the historical data, right? So let's say ChatGPT is being trained on a lots of New York articles, or let's say it has been trained on a lots of existing web pages and so on and so forth, right? And it can basically map what is the utility of this. It maps basically the data points, and this is when we are talking about, even though it's text, it's basically vectors, right? That which goes into it. So this is all vectors, right? And this vectors is something which is mapped, and they basically are imagine like you have, let's say, vectors of objects, right? And these objects can be defined with respect to their strength of correlations. Okay, so imagine let's say I am using I'm writing a word. I like I like playing. Okay. And I want to type the next word. Okay. Now this word can be football. This can be cricket. This can be tennis, basketball. I like playing often. It can be anything, right? So this can be any word. Okay. Now, how does generative AI really works? So when your chat GPT or the models that you interact with, they basically generate the content. So basically, it's like the word that follows, right? So there are a lot of words which are in the sample space of it, and out of that, there are certain words. There will be a specific word which will be an output of this or this that will come in here, right? And that is basically based on an what we define as a max probability, right? So basically, every word will have an probability. It's like an auto encoder and a decoder. And this probability, based on that probability, you are trying to predict, or the content is basically generated, right? So this, now I like playing cricket. So basically, you imagine, let's say you have playing here and you have cricket here. So they have a lot of dependencies or correlation, right? And this is something which the model has already learned. And based on that, it can predict. Right, so that is the first part of it, where it's basically trying to encode a lot of existing information into a form or what we define as an vector space, right? The other form is basically when we prompt, right? So when we give a prompt to the let's say the tool, it basically decodes that. Okay, and it decodes and it's a new content that we see. So I will say that, generate a image of let's say a dog flying, right? Something like that. Or anything which you actually would want to generate. So it generates a new content by finding the current context, the context that you are setting, right? And using that context, it can basically use the historical information on which it has been trained to generate something uh, new, right? And that's how it basically generates. So when we say that generative AI is for generating images or text or videos or whatever, it's basically works on two fundamental things. It works on encoding, and this encoding is basically based on something which has been already the model has been trained upon, right? And the second is basically decoding, and decoding really works on what kind of context, what kind of prompt you are giving, and based on that, it's on whatever you have trained. So let's say model has not been trained a lot, right? So even if you give a very good prompt, it might not do well. But let's say model has been trained a lot, it has been given a lot of training information, and there's a lot of vector spaces which it already knows. So even with not a good prompt, it can work fairly well, right? So just to summarize, what generative AI is, or what it tries to do, it basically it's a kind of a model. It's not just large language models. I think some of you mentioned that it's basically large language models which is used to generate. So large language models are mostly used to generate text content, right? So for example, Gemini is using uh, Anthropic in the backend as a model to generate text content. But for let's say generating an image content, we have different models. Like say we have called DALL, right? That's an image model, right? So DALL is basically an image model, which is OpenAI's. Similarly, we have DeepSeek, which has come in, which can generate text data, right? So there are different models for different things. And essentially, it's very important also to understand the difference between the three things, okay? Because since we are doing this webinar, I think I would want you guys to take this as a learning that the model, okay? So model is basically what? Model is something which is there in the backend. So what is an example of a model? An example of a model can be llama, right? Which is a model by Meta. So this is an example of a model. Now, similarly, uh, sorry. Similarly, it's LLM. Similarly, for OpenAI, we can have different models, right? So we can have models with respect to images. We can have respect to text and so on and so forth, right? So there can be so many models with respect to each. So it's important that you guys can differentiate between a model. So for example, O4 Mini is a model, okay? O4 Mini has been the GPT, right? Now, but is one the entire app. Now, uh, HLPT is the interface on which you are interacting, right? So basically, it's like the app application on which is the model and on which the user is interacting and is also basically the inputs from the model, right? And this is the specific word for these models, and these are foundation, by the way, right? And foundation models basically refers to both your language models. It can be related to image models, so on and so forth. And then you can basically link a GPT to an different app. It can be linked to your own. A lot of times, organizations have their uh, uh, own app, right, which can generate content based on the prompts. So basically, instead of ChatGPT, imagine, let's say, I'm sure a lot of you guys are working, and you guys might have your uh, own applications for generating content. That's what it is using. So OpenAI might just give you that model access, the API keys, models, right? And there is also something what we define as LangChain, which is like a framework to connect a lot of apps, right? So now with the advancement in this particular field, what has happened is that not only a model can learn from what you are trying to give a prompt, but it can also learn from other models, right? So it's like a machine learning from a different machine. So that is what we define as agentic AI, where the agents is basically interacting with each other and trying to learn something, right? So there's a lot of development, and there's a lot of buzz, which is of course there is some kind of hype to it, but at the same time, since there is a lot of investments which is going on in particular in basically making these models successful or trying to prove the value behind these models, but yes, there is definitely a lot of correct I would say value proposition behind these models, right? So and that's where we also have something like agentic AI. We have something like LangChains, which is basically the of interacting or connecting with the different large language model apps, right? So when you say about GPT, or when you and what is GPT? Anyone knows the full form of GPT by any ways here? No, it's not. That's what I think. You guys need to correct that. AI is not Chat GPT, right? So AI is a much better word, or I would say much universal word, and AI can involve a lot of things. And GPT is one of the applications, right? So we can have predictive analytics, we can have prescriptive analytics, we also have something called descriptive analytics, right? So there's a lot of evolution which has happened in AI, and one of the current evolutions that we are talking about, that we are all experiencing, is generative AI, right? But it's not that AI is equal to ChatGPT. I think it's that's not a right understanding. But yeah, I'm definite that with this webinar you could be right. So yeah, exactly. I think you all guys mentioned it correctly. So it's called generative pre-trained transformers. So when you say pre-trained, it simply means that you have the model has been pre-trained on a lot of I would say historical data, and a lot of hence there is also a question about like what kind of data it can access, what the model was trained upon, was there any bias in these models, was there any kind of glitches or you know, unfair responses which the model can generate. So what we define as hallucinations. So all of this can happen, right? And nothing is perfect. And voice is breaking. I hope it's better now. Hope it's better now. Is it the same? Much better now. Okay. Yeah. Maybe there was some issue, but okay. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So any questions, guys? Same. Any questions before I basically introduce you to the brief way of actually doing an hands-on on a Gen AI model. In order to understand vectors, should we learn about linear algebra? So yeah, it's a vast space that I agree, and there is a bit of mathematics that's for sure that goes in, Shubham. Uh, but I would say if you want to start with generative AI, I think it's good to start with I would say natural language, right? So what is natural language? How does it works? How can we clean the text? What are the different techniques of processing it, right? I think that could be good. uh, uh, Matrices and algebra is something which you guys can learn on the fly, but it's not the main thing, or it's not the primary thing. So I think if you want to put a focus upon, you can focus on the right things first, right? So maybe on NLP and on how do we create vectors, uh, right? Using NLP can be a good thing to start with. Okay. LangChain is a framework. Yes. So LangChain, what is the difference between LLP and NLP being a subset of LLM? So again, a good question. So I will try to answer both of them. So LangChain. So LangChain is basically uh, is a way of a framework, right, that can help you to integrate large language models into applications. So basically, let's say a company is using a large language model, so it has to have some kind of a chatbot. It has to have an architecture. It has to communicate in the model, right? So all of that requires an infrastructure, right? So LangChain basically is that framework that helps us to integrate large language models into an existing infrastructure, so that um, at the back end, obviously you have the models, but in the front end, the user is just trying to interact and give prompts, and the output is generated, right? So so it's basically used for simplifying applications, and it can use a lot of things, and it not only can only use the historical data on which it was trained, but it can also use some kind of external data, or let's say data which is specific to your systems, for the application. Okay. I hope it's voice is cracking again. Okay. I hope it's better now again. What's the way to get into generative AI? What's the learning path? Uh, Again, is it too bad? Can you guys hear me? Let me can hear. It's better. Okay, better now. Okay, okay, perfect. So one of the things that you guys can start with is start maybe structuring what all the things. So there are three, four things. One is about the models. One is about how to build applications, and one also the other part is how can you train the models, right? How can you basically, if there is a model, how you can tune the models, right? That is also very important. So it's just not about, building a model. It's also about tuning the model, making the model customized for a certain basic need. I think Ivy offers a lot of such courses, so you can also interact with them and see if it meets your needs. But at the same time, you can do it by yourselves and pick your and build some blocks of understanding. So the first block can be on the models. The second block can be how do you train the models, how do you update the models, how do you tune the models. The third part can be how you write some good prompts so that the output is good, and how can you pull the context, how what kind of things can basically influence the output, right? And the fourth part can be building applications. Okay. So could you give some insights on the chain of thought and tree of thought? Yeah. So basically, it's a vast topic. So on the chain of thoughts and on the tree of thoughts, this is basically something on the whenever we do a chain of thought, right? So it's kind of a technique of prompt engineering. Basically, whenever, let's say, you're trying to if you're trying to make ChatGPT answer in a certain way, and it's not trying to answer, or it's not giving the answer in the most precise way that you'd want. So you want to do it step by step. You give it step by step logical reasoning, and say that, okay, pause this, do this, and post this, do this. So it's basically guiding it in a very, and one is standard prompting, that okay, you write a big line of command, and based on that the output is generated, है ना? So so this chain and tree of thought, these are ways of prompting. So obviously, there are certain better ways of doing it. And essentially what it means, very simply put, it's like giving it reason one by one, so that you can uh, influence GPT, or any of these models, to give you a response in a specific way. Okay, I hope it made sense. Cool. So with that, maybe I will stop sharing, and I will basically now introduce you to the. So as we promised, this session is also about where we will try to do something on the ground, right? We'll try to build something, sorry, where we will use chat GPT and try to build an app for ourselves, right? So that is something that we will be doing. So we will be using for this. Okay. So very sorry. And just to give you context, so what we are trying to do, let me try to define the prompt statement. So the prompt statement is, so imagine, let's say I want to understand that if a, so as you know, in the current scenario, there are a lot of fake news which gets generated, right? So you would want to understand that the news that gets generated, is it fake or not, right? So we'll try to use chat gpt in this case. So we'll not obviously use the front end model, because that's not the part, that's not why we are here. We'll try to check the backend as well and build our own app, right? So that if I give some prompt and ask my app to tell it that if this is a fake news or it's a true news, right? It's a correct news. So we can basically the app build can analyze it on the back end and tell me. Okay. Does this make sense? The prompt statement, was I clear in explaining it to all of you? Does it sound interesting? So here we are not, I will not open the chat GPT and I'll paste an article and ask that if it's a fake news or not. What we'll try to do is actually build it right in the ground, and we'll see that if it can work fine or not. Yeah, I'm not sharing it, by the way, right now. I will share it, but was the problem statement clear for everyone? I would really want everyone to type in a yes, so that I know you guys are following, uh, and you guys are really understanding what we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
I will still wait for a few more of them. GPT is trained on old data. Yes, that's true. That's true. So yeah, so basically, so it what it will do, so it can check on the it's even though it's trained on the backend data, but there are certain things. So obviously, uh, I cannot give today's news and it can tell me. But let's say if I give some news or some articles which have some keywords which are not very correct, it can obviously check and see if it's a fake news or not, right? So, and it can also give me some kind of, should also give me some kind of references or sources based on which it's defining if it's a fake news or not. Okay, cool. I hope you guys got that part. Okay. So let me reshare my screen, guys, and please let me know if you can see it. Uh, just a moment. Uh, can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see the VS Code? Like so can you guys see the code right now? No, 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 no. Okay,
No, sir.
let me reshare. Sorry, maybe I'll try to. Chu, chu, chu. Okay, let me share my entire screen.
can't hear you anything. There's no audio at all.
Now, am I audible now? Sorry, am I audible now? Okay, perfect. So you can both see my screen as well as you guys can hear me, right? Okay, perfect. Cool. So what I was saying that, sorry, for people who might not be aware of Python, so don't worry, I will not go into the too details of it, but at the same time I will try to explain what are the major blocks of codes that we are trying to do to basically build this application, right? And for people who are already knowing it, so for you also it should be pretty simple in terms of following it, right? The code is not so heavy, but obviously for building it we are trying to use the packages. So the packages from OpenAI or from Skillon, right? So the first thing that we do, so I will in the next 5 or 10 minutes, what I will do is I will try to give you a walkthrough of the code. Okay. So the first thing, and let me try to recheck if everyone can hear me fine. I guess you guys can hear me fine. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing that we are doing is we are trying to call certain packages. So packages are basically modules that is used for doing specific things. So we are calling the OpenAI package. We are calling a Streamlit module. So Streamlit will be the package where we'll be hosting the app, right? The app for demonstrating how we can identify the fake news. We are also trying to extract the environment, OS for the working directory, JSON for reading JSON files, request in case if we, since we are loading data, right, from servers. So in that case, we require the request library, sklearn for uh, cleaning the data and making the data ready for modeling, right? So the first thing we do an load dot environment. So this is for loading the environment variables for OpenAI. So the client is OpenAI. We have the OpenAI key. We also have the CSE ID. Then basically we define the is a very small function for reading the data set. So we have a news data which is already trained on which the model will be trained, right? So basically based on this model, based on this training, we can customize our data, right? So it can customize and it can see that uh, the already if the data and when we try to prompt something it will try to basically see if the model is if the news is good or not, right? So, but for since it's a text related data, guys, so obviously we need to process that, and for processing it we are using certain NLP techniques, right, like TF-IDF or term frequency inverse document frequency vectorizer. We are converting everything to list. We are then doing an fit transform using the vectorizer. We are trying to find similar words using the cosine similarity, and we are trying to find the let's say the topmost similar words, all right? And then in the next function, we are trying to integrate the custom search API, the Google Search API. So for that, we just need to provide these following parameters like the search URL. We need to provide the query, again, the Google API key, and the number of results that we would want to check, right? So basically, let's say if I'm saying if it's a fake news or not, I would also want the app to give me some references, like some actual links to check if it's a fake news or not, right? And based on that, I'm basically, it will return me based on the query I'm giving, right? Then I'm also giving, so I'm basically storing all of this in the items, and then it's basically returning in terms of an dictionary. So we have a title, right? We have the link, we have a snippet, and we have the item. So we have all of this returned to basically check like if I'm giving a certain query, and it can return me if the news that I'm giving, if it's fake or not. But at the same time, some kind of example news to prove if it's a fake or not, right? Then we are defining some tools to call the OpenAI. So basically, we are defining the if it has to search similar articles, find the most relevant articles in the data set for comparison, right? That's what the context I have set in, and the required is obviously news text. And I'm giving another one. So the name is Google Search. Search the web for credible sources related to the news article, right? So what I'm trying to say, so there are two different agents that I'm trying to put. One is the internal, another is the external. So in the internal, it's trying to check for the internal news, like what I have trained on the data. But on the second agent is basically on the Google search, right? So it searches the web for the sources, and it gives you certain news articles, right? Based on whatever query you have given, right? And once you have given this, so this is the part where I'm building the model. So what are the three things which I'm doing, or four things? The first thing, I'm giving an data set to basically clean it and give some similar items. The second is I'm trying to return some Google News links, right? And then sorry, I'm using the OpenAI to first search the similar articles based on the data set which I have cleaned, and at the same time creating another agent based on the Google search, right? So it will try to search the credible sources, and it will return me an output, right? So does this make sense till here? Majorly, like broadly, if does all of these blocks make sense to you guys? Is it clear? I hope it is. Can you show the short code? Yeah, will try to. We'll try to do that. So can you just so quickly, how does OS data, OVW data does yeah, okay, I can show you that. So it's basically a news data where we have a lot of articles, and since it's a text related data, so obviously we need to go and we need to clean it. Okay. So on that part, I think I will let the team comment. I think you guys might receive the source code. So will yeah. So you can basically get it from uh, what Ajay had picked. Okay, cool. So till this part, we basically have defined or cleaned the data, defined the model, what the model needs to do, and defined the OpenAI agents, right? And the next thing, as I said, I'm not using an like a chat GPT app to basically trigger. What I'm doing is I'm creating an app by myself, right? So I'm creating a Streamlit app, and this app name is Fake News Detector using Gen AI. So that's the title that you will see when we run the app, and it has got an user input. So this is the user input that I would be giving, right? And then basically, if you press on the analyze button, it will say analyzing the news article, and it will call the GPT, right? So if you see, it's calling the GPT create. It is using the ChatGPT 4 mini model. So this is the model which I was mentioning, right? Initially, that there are various models. So ChatGPT is just the application. There are models behind it, and the message is that, is this news real or fake? So it will basically ask the GPT to answer it, and then based on that answer, it will call that, and it will give me the responses, right? And at the same time, I will also search for similar articles. That is what I had defined here. So if you remember, I defined this particular function, search similar articles here, right? The search similar articles, and that is what it returns here. Okay, and call function name is Google search, and based on the arguments that I've given, and then it's continue, and then what's the call ID, what's the role, what's the name, and we are dumping the result, right? And then finally I want to combine all the things that based on the on the prompts that I've given. So I'd combine the message, I would combine the responses and the to response, right? And finally we'll have the final GPT response, again with the final message with the please determine whether the following news article is real or fake based on a similar article known, right? So what is the task which I'm defining? Return a verdict. So when we initiate this app, you will see it will do the following four tasks. It will first return a verdict if it's a real or fake. It will give me a confidence score from 0 to 100 on whether it is real or fake, right? It will just not say that if it's real or fake. It will also give me a confidence score. Okay, and it will also try to justify the answer that based on what it is defining it's if it's real or fake, right? So the agent will kind of justify the entire action of if it's real or fake, and then it will include some credible links from the web search, from the Google search that we did, to support the fact that if it's good or yeah, right? So these are the four things that it will do. So basically this would be the final response that will come up, right? And and based on that, obviously we can determine that if the news a query, or if even if I, let's say I have some sample news article, I can put it in the Streamlit in Streamlit app, and it can tell me that whether it's fake or not, right? So and then finally we have an AI verdict, right? So this is the backend. This entire backend code is what we will try to run. Okay, but I hope it's clear to all. I'll try to run it. In the meantime, I hope it runs fine. Yeah, we are using VS Code here. We are using a VS Code here. Okay, so now we have the app. So let me try to just give me a moment, guys. I'll try to initiate it. Make this. Okay, I will reshare my screen, and I will need to reshare my entire screen. Perfect. So when I ran the app, I landed up in an app like this. So it says fake news detector with Gen AI. So that's what we had given the name. Enter the news article you'd want to verify, right? So for example, here I've got some fake news. So here, for example, let's take this. Each year, 18,000 people die in America because they do not have healthcare, right? So let's try to copy this news, and let's try to paste it here, and ask my app to basically analyze if this news which I'm trying to promote, if it's true or false. Okay, so I clicked on analyze, so it says analyzing the news article, and in the back end it's not only just cleaning the data and all of that. It's actually doing a lot of things, a lot of agents in place working for it. So it's analyzing the data that we have trained. It's also trying to analyze based on what and the GPT is trying to do, and it's also giving me some articles. So the verdict is real. The confidence score is 85. The statement that 18,000 people die in America because they don't have healthcare aligns closely with historical reports and studies that have highlighted the mortality associated with lacking health insurance. For instance, a study referenced an article from credible sources indicates that around 18,000 Americans aged 25 to 64 died prematurely each year due to being uninsured, right? So it is giving me some very solid facts to support my argument. This number, while it has sometimes been reported differently, around 45,000 deaths in some contexts, reflects a consistent concern in healthcare discussions over the years regarding the impact of insurance on health outcomes. Displays the claims within the context of established research. right? So that is what, and it can also gives me some credible links on based on what it's trying to prove the justification, right? Like these three links which are actually clickable and which you can see, right? So it's not something which we actually ask on the front end like a GPT, right? So it's our own article, it's our own fake news detector which is running GPT in the backend to basically analyze the data, give me. So these are the four tasks, right? If you remember that we asked the GPT to perform. The first task was to give a verdict if it's a real or false, give me a confidence score, give me a justification, and give me a credible link, right? So it returns all of the four things. The first, it tells me if it's real or not with a confidence score. It also justifies, and just like a machine learning model might have just predicted it if it's real or not, right? Or it might also have given you a confidence score, but it could not simultaneously give you some kind of a justification or some kind of credible links, right? So that is the entire advantage of doing this, right? So, and that is how you can build something of your own, right? And you can make it customized. You can tune it in your own way. You can ensure that this statement is short or long. You can do all of that, right? So there are ways to tune this. There are ways to shorten this. There are ways to make it precise. There are ways to add few more links. There are ways to add few more things, right? All of that can be done. But this is just a glimpse of how you can build a real AI agent for yourself, using generative AI in the backend, using the actual models in the backend. And even you can train the model by yourselves so that uh, it has some kind of on ground information. So a lot of times you might be training on something on which you do not have actual data, like a publicly available data, but you can train it with the data by yourselves. So the GPT can use, the OpenAI model can use even that to basically recommend things, right? But I hope you got the context around it. I hope you got, guys, you got the context around it. So what accuracy measure is used for confidence score? How is valid, correct value cell? Okay. So okay, I'll try to take the questions in the last 4 minutes. So what accuracy measure? So yeah, so for now, since it's a generated content, we'll never have an proper accuracy score, but there are measures to check, right? So basically, whenever we are trying to generate something, uh, one way is obviously the human trials. You can obviously check it's through the human trials by actually checking if the news is correct or not. But when we see about the accuracy for LLM, there are different ways of doing that. Uh, so one of the ways of checking the accuracy is basically what we define as uh, uh, like since it's generating something, we do not have anything, right? So overall, so we can obviously have some kind of precision and recall. So let's say we have some kind of a test data, right? So we already know that if it's a fake news or not. So based on that, what the model is recommending, I can even actually make it a supervised learning and generate the precision and the recall scores, right? uh, in terms of the hallucination, so yes, it can hallucinate and give some inaccurate answers, and that is where training the model, if you are doing with some kind of small data, it's very important that you do with some kind of a good data, because if it's exposed to some kind of unrealistic and all of that, it's the result might not be very reliable, correct? So there are two ways of doing it. So one is obviously making it a supervised, and you can check based on certain data for which, let's see, you already have the labels, so if it's fake or not. So for example, the data which I gave, we already had the labels, right? And we knew that the outputs are good, but at the same time, one needs to be sure of that we are ensuring that the model is not hallucinating. So that could be ensured if you are not giving something which is where the data is not reliable, and so on and so forth. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, cool. So I think that was it, guys. I hope really all of you guys enjoyed the short webinar. Can we implement RAG? Yes, we can. That's for sure. We can always implement RAG. Which tool is used to do this coding? We are using Python. It's VS Code. Santosh, what is the best AI tool for a non-coder to code? Non-coder to code. Yeah, basically, if you're learning Python, I think Jupyter is a good tool to start with. Uh, we have to take consideration into cost. Yes, for sure. So all of
हेलो
these models are pretty expensive.
बात होगी सर
And yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Tarun. You have a question?
लीव कर दूं सर
Oh, I think you might not have a question. If I can ask you to be on mute,
सर मेरे को
please.
दूसरी वेबिनार थोड़ा ज्वाइन करना है ना इसलिए बोल रहा था मैं
Maybe can you
हेलो
please mute Tarun? Yeah, you have a question, Tarun? I'm sorry.
सर मैं ये कह रहा हूँ मेरे को ना दूसरा वेबिनार अटेंड करना था तो मैं इसलिए कह रहा था
You can drop, please, if you want. Sure, no worries. Yeah, no worries. We're also trying to wrap it up, and you guys can, join the other one. But I hope all of you guys enjoyed it. I hope all of you guys were able to follow it. And I hope you guys got some takeaways and got some more, I would say, better understanding of this entire space and the interesting things that Gen AI can do, right? Apart from the things which you already know. Yeah. So yeah, thank you all for attending this Wednesday evening, and I wish you a very good evening and a good week ahead.